Hello and welcome to Better Gaming, the event and podcast series dedicated to all aspects of ethical gambling as we seek to discuss how to make gaming and gambling safe, secure and socially balanced for everyone. My name's Jim. I'm the host of the show. And in this episode, we're going to be taking a look at this article from last week. It's all to do with London, TfL. And for those that are unaware, TfL is Transport for London, and Sadiq Khan and his re-election manifesto of 2021. So let's take a look at the article. Ban on betting adverts on the Tube network will be delayed until a formal definition of harmful gambling is agreed upon, the Mayor of London has said. Sadiq Khan has been accused of backtracking on his promise to rid the underground of promotions for casinos and gambling websites, and this is something that he pledged in his 2021 election campaign. And as you would expect, the usual politicking. So City Hall's Green leader, Caroline Russell, quite rightly, I may add, has asked when the policy will be implemented, wants to hear more detail about what the policy is and the plans to implement it. The Mayor's manifesto promise was that he would execute an ethical advertising policy for TfL rather than wait for Londoners' complaints and media outcry to remove the material. So essentially being proactive in this scenario, and rightly so, because you can see that there's a tidal wave of discontent around gambling adverts in the sporting sector, more so in the councils and public spaces. There is something that could be done within that. Previously, London Assembly's Health Committee warned that the capital's rate of problem gambling was almost twice the average seen across Britain. That doesn't surprise me. And health advisor Dr. Tom Kofi said a ban on gambling adverts had been delayed because City Hall could be subject to a legal challenge if it introduced restrictions based on its own definition of harmful gambling. So here we get to the nub of the problem. Essentially, they're worried about lawsuits and legal challenges by platforms and operators who would see it as unfair restriction of their business, even if they are compliant and licensed by the Gambling Commission. So on one point, you can see what their concern is if they're being responsible operators. On the flip side, you can see the need for a review of this situation and why people like the Mayor and the London Assembly would call for this. Essentially, what you're looking at is quite a sizable chunk of revenue not being directed towards TfL, because if they implemented the gambling advert ban, then they'd be losing out on substantial revenue, which would, in the last financial year of April 22 to March 23, they took in £663,000. So once again, it's all a strain on public coffers as well as doing the right thing. The article also looks into the levy, discusses the levy, which we've already discussed that in quite a bit of detail, so I don't need to go into that. But let's have a look here. So Russell told the local democracy reporting service she had heard devastating testimony from people harmed by gambling, and she does not understand why the Mayor needs more evidence. I think, again, it's not from his not wanting to do it. He's just seeking counsel and making sure that he's doing it properly. Londoners struggle with gambling need support. 100% agree with that. Instead, they are faced with adverts that normalise and glamorise gambling as they travel on the transport network. So I think they're just probably looking at the safest way to implement this without finding themselves in problems. And just with regard to the end of the article, the Betting and Gaming Council told the LDRS last year that the industry generates $2.2 billion for the London economy and provides 28,000 jobs in the capital. So the gambling industry is a significant sector for London. This is just the tip of the iceberg with regard to what's coming down the line for gambling companies and with specific regards to councils or regions that have public spaces in terms of determining what they see as viable advertising partners moving forward. I think Sheffield City Council recently announced, or when I say recently, last year, 2024, announced that they were implementing a ban and restriction on not only gambling ads, but also unhealthy foods, so fast food operators, fossil fuels and vaping products. And Haringey in January this year, they implemented a ban on gambling ads within their territory and their public spaces. So yeah, it's really interesting that this seems to be the beginning of the end for gambling ads in council spaces on council property and any infrastructure projects. So once again, the space that gambling operators can advertise is decreasing, although on the flip side, with the digital space, that is expanding exponentially. So it's just a case of where does the gambling advert criteria start and end, and how are people going to get to grips with trying to put controls in place? Because as it mentions here, if Sadiq Khan does implement the gambling advert ban, then he could be opening himself up for legal challenges, which I don't think it would be the right thing for the operators and the platforms to do. But I could also see from their point why they would submit a challenge. So interesting element, and one that I will be following with keen eyes. Till the next video, see you later. Cheers.